I'm so excited to have Natalie here today. Welcome to the Arthritis Life podcast.
Hello.
Can you just start off by telling the audience a little bit of the basics about yourself, like where you're from and where you live?
Okay, so my name is Natalie. I'm born and raised in Amsterdam, but I actually now live on the Canary Islands. I moved here almost 7 years ago. In a few weeks, it's going to be 7 years, mainly for my health, to be honest, because I'm allergic to the cold and I have fibromyalgia. So I just feel way better in a warmer but stable climate. Like it doesn't get extremely hot here either. So
Oh,
that's the short.
that sounds great. I kind of want to join you. And yeah, I know we could take a whole episode talking about our diagnosis journeys and how easy or difficult they were. But okay, can you explain a little bit about, your different health conditions? Because most people who come on the Arthritis Life podcast have a form of arthritis, but many of them also have fibromyalgia or other concurrent conditions that can cause chronic pain. So can you tell whatever you're comfortable sharing with the audience?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it short.
Yeah.
I have made lots of videos about this because there's so much to tell. In the short, so my cold urticaria, I did not know what it was. I didn't figure out until after I actually moved here that that's what was triggering a lot of things. My fibromyalgia was also not initially, none of my conditions were initially diagnosed by doctors, like zero of them. The fibromyalgia one, my friend told me that her friend was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I never heard of it before. She sent me this website with a list of symptoms. She's like, it kind of sounds like what you always say. So I looked into it and I was already going to physical therapy regularly. And he was like, well, it can definitely be this. I'm not allowed to diagnose you, but let's treat you as if it is fibromyalgia while you go and get your diagnosis. Well, it took another like 10 years to officially get diagnosed, but I was already being treated as if it was fibromyalgia. So that really helped. As I said, my cold urticaria actually was an interesting one because I started my community, the Unchargeables, years ago. And in the beginning, it was only about fibromyalgia because I thought that was the only thing that I lived with. But then I started talking to people and people had all these different health issues. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to dive into other health conditions for the sake of the community. The more that I was reading, the more I'm like, wow, this kind of sounds as what I have.
Right. Wow. No, I had that too, like Raynaud syndrome. I thought everyone's fingers just totally went, lost circulation and got white. And then I found out, oh, that's a syndrome. So yeah, that's
Exactly.
fascinating. So you started your community to be just about fibromyalgia and then expanded it and realized that it's very uncommon to have only one diagnosis when you get into the kind of chronic pain world. So, and I know that you also have migraine as well, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry. That's something that I've been learning a lot more about lately, that because I didn't know it actually is more common in the rheumatic disease community as well to have migraine, which is a neurological disease, but I was going to ask, can you explain to people who might not have heard of fibromyalgia before or know, oh, fibromyalgia, something to do with pain. Can you explain a little bit, what does fibromyalgia feel like? What are some of the symptoms of it for you?
I have got a lot of conditions all at the same time, so I'm never really sure which symptom goes with what. But as far as my fibromyalgia, which is almost in remission now that I've moved here, but before it was really stabbing pain, burning pain. When I was younger, they told me I had growing pains. They never went away, like still experiencing those from time to time, like muscle aches that just don't go away. And especially when you wake up in the morning, just being super stiff, everything hurts and you really need to like warm up your body before you can move properly and the pain goes down a little bit. So those are my main I don't have that anymore, were my main fibro symptoms.
Oh, that's really helpful. And what about fatigue? I'm curious. Has your fatigue gotten better since you've
Well,
moved?
no, my
Okay.
fatigue wasn't really bad. Actually, my pain was really bad, and that I was
Okay.
stiff and my joints would kind of block. I'm also hypermobile, so that doesn't help. My fatigue is really bad because I also have Hashimoto's disease, which is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid, and my body doesn't produce enough thyroid hormones, so I take
Right.
them in, pills. And most of my fatigue really comes from that.
Okay. And I really resonate with what you said about never knowing exactly what symptoms from what. I have the same thing, especially if you've also had like an injury on top of a chronic pain condition. Like I injured my thumb years ago. So there's a little bit of a different kind of pain from that on top of the rheumatoid arthritis pain. And it's very hard to know like what's causing what. And I was trying to have a clever segue when I mentioned fatigue into your Unchargeables account. I love the name Unchargeables. And
Thank you.
I know that charge, when we say charge, we're kind of referring to a battery metaphor. Can you explain a little bit, why did you choose the name Unchargeables for your account and how that led to the Chargimals today?
Okay, so about 7 years ago, a few months after I moved to the Canary Islands, I was trying to sell t-shirts online to make some money, and it wasn't working. Like I was trying to to sell mom shirts, dog shirts, nursing. I don't even have anything to do with nursing. One of my friends, he's very good at selling t-shirts, and I'm like, can you give me some advice, please? And he's like, you have to sell something you're really good at. What are you really good at? And I respond, being sick. I don't know. And he's like, okay, so make t-shirts about being sick. I thought he was insane. I thought he was joking. And he was dead serious. He's like, no, make t-shirts about being sick. I'm like, who's going to wear a t-shirt saying I'm sick? You know?
Right, right.
Like my coping mechanism is kind of like humor and sarcasm. So I tried to find my way, and that is how I started my page. So I started on Facebook with the Unchargeables page. It is, I think maybe the word kind of came because I sort of translated it from Dutch, because if you cannot be charged, you are unchargeable. And we as a group, then we are the Unchargeables. So
Right.
I think that's how it made sense to me.
Well, I love it. And I think what you mentioned earlier is so fascinating. This whole idea of like identity, right? And identifying as like a disabled person or person with a disability, or a person like with arthritis, in my case. Sometimes at first people go through a stage of denial, which is totally normal, in grief.
Definitely.
And we can go through phases up and down of denial and grief and acceptance for sure. But you know, there's this empowerment that can come from like quote unquote taking back control of the narrative, saying like, yeah, like I'm unchargeable, this is who, and I'm part of a community. I'm not alone. I'm not the only one, And so I love that at first you were like, this is wacky. Like no one's going to buy a t-shirt. And then, but people obviously did, because you've been selling t-shirts about, chronic illness, and that aren't just like, I'm sad because I have fibromyalgia. Of course, it's all, obviously we all do get sad and we want to validate those feelings, but there's something about humor. Again, I'm rambling here, but the humor can help you elevate over your situation. That's what I find, at least. And I know you have some really funny videos on your TikTok and your social media too. Do you find humor like therapeutic for you?
Yes, I always say it's better to laugh than to cry. There's a time and a place for crying as well, but you cannot get stuck in the crying and being sad. Like that would be my whole life then. So I'm like, let's just laugh about it. Like me and my closest friends, if something went terribly wrong, we would find something funny in it and just laugh
Right.
our asses off. And it makes you feel better, even though it still went completely wrong and maybe something terrible happened. But, you can kind of laugh yourself out of that feeling.
No, I love this quote from Viktor Frankl. He's actually a Viennese psychotherapist who was in an internment camp and during the Holocaust. So he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And he said, and I don't know why I've always remembered this, but I looked it up just to make sure I don't butcher it, is humor is another of the soul's weapons in the fight for self-preservation. I think even
That's a
somebody
good
who's been,
one.
yeah, somebody who's been through the Holocaust is saying like, don't knock humor as like a coping mechanism. So we weren't even planning on like talking about humor, but I think it's,
Came up. Well, there's two things I wanted to say. First of all,
yes.
the TikTok I only started like last spring because I kept getting banned from the other social media. So I'm like, okay, I'll move to freaking TikTok. I've been banned from Facebook, from Instagram, from Twitter. I'm back on all of them with new accounts. And anyway, so that's why I went to TikTok. And I was always thinking, how can I make videos about what I do? Because we make these inspirational meme types of text that people can relate to. For example, like my fatigue feels like, and then we ask the community what it feels like to them. And then we make these meme images out of their responses. And then I was like, okay, let me just try sort of talking to myself in my authentic humor, sarcasm way. It's like how I talk to my mom and my sister. And the first video I posted got like 25,000 views in a day. And I'm like, oh, okay. I did not think this out. Like my hair and my face and my clothes were like in my pajamas. I had a terrible background. I didn't think anybody would see it because I didn't have any followers. I think I had like 5. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So
but that's amazing. The response that the audience tells you what they want more of, right?
Yeah. So I was kind of like, okay, I have to like strip it down literally to when I'm in a conversation with my friends or with my mom, then I'll say something that I'm like, I need to write this down. This can be a video. Or when I think something when I'm in bed and I really want to clean my room or whatever. And I have this internal struggle. I'm like, oh, I need to write this down. Then I'll make a video about that because I'm sure other people feel that too. So I just try to strip it down as much as possible. And people are reacting to it.
Yeah. And it's really amazing what you can do in 15 seconds or 30 seconds or now, 60 seconds and up to 3 minutes on TikTok. But like, it's funny because when I started in 2019, making videos about, chronic illness and life hacks. And I would do these like 8 to 10 minute videos on one life hack topic. Like I did an 8-minute video on different travel coffee mugs for arthritis, how arthritis friendly are they to take on the top and how arthritis friendly are they to clean? And now I'm doing the same concept, but trying to fit it all into 15 or 30 seconds. And it's really hard. It's actually easier to just sit there and like ramble for 10 minutes versus like making a really condensed video, but people love it.
I have to say that I use TikTok to like practice my elevator pitch for the Chargimals.
That's great. Yeah. Okay. And so before we go into the Chargimals, actually, let's talk about, so what do you like about the term, or can you explain the term Chargey to the audience? And like what does the battery charger metaphor mean for you as somebody who's living with this?
Okay, so the term Chargey was made up by the community. They started referring to each other as Chargeys because we are all in the Unchargeables. And one of the most common used terms is spoonie. So in our community, people would call each other Chargey. And so that kind of just organically happened, but I ran with it because why not?
Yeah.
And the battery analogy, this is actually something that really happened. So I was sleeping the entire night, and in the morning, I woke up and I had my phone, but the cable of my charger was broken. So sometimes it would charge all the way all night. And sometimes it would just charge like halfway because the cable was kind of, just not connecting correctly. So I woke up in the morning, my phone was only charged at 40%. I turned to my partner and I'm kind of like, this charger is like me. You never know what you're going to get in the morning. And I wrote a blog about it. And that's it.
Oh, I love it. I think it's it's really a resonant metaphor for me because it does have to directly to do with energy, right? And Also, like if you don't have a faulty charger, people would say things like, able-bodied people are like, oh, well, you just need to charge, or you just need to do this, or you just need to do that. And it's like not realizing that,
Just
like,
exercise, you'll get energy.
yeah. Yeah. Weirdly enough, for rheumatoid arthritis, the evidence does show that, but not for every condition, sadly.
Well, it depends, because a lot of
Yeah.
people, when I say exercise, they think pumping weights at the gym or running a
Yes.
marathon. Like exercise, I have taught like these gentle exercise classes for my community, where when I was rehabilitating from my umpteenth, like whatever injury, I didn't have any strength in my arms. So the only thing that my physical therapist had me do is hold my arms up for 15 seconds. That was it. That is exercise. If that's where you're at, that is your exercise, and you'll get better and you can do more.
Oh, so true. I mean, it's so funny you said that, because I actually will have people do that. Like put your arms out and just try to hold them if you can for like a minute and see the effect of gravity. I mean, and your body has mass. So even regardless of what your body weight is, when you have to hold your body up, it takes energy. And and if you have more muscle, you will move more efficiently. So, but it's a vicious cycle either way, right? If you're weak, then it becomes harder to move. And so anyway, but yeah, the Chargey term is also great, because one of the kind of invisible aspects of living with a condition that causes pain and fatigue is that lack of energy. And it's hard. Like, I think people can, even though pain is invisible, people can kind of picture what pain feels like, even if it's a wrong picture, but kind of they can have a concept of it. But the fatigue, like the level of fatigue that some of us go through with these conditions is harder for people to kind of get. Like, why don't you just like push through it? So you can say, well, it's like my battery is not charged. Like it can't, So I love that. And then so you have the Unchargeable community across all these different social media platforms and Patreon and other places. And then you created the Chargimals. Can you share a little bit about what the Chargimals are? And you can show pictures for those of you watching the video version, or show examples.
I've started making them into plushies. So the Chargimals are little monsters that each present a physical or mental health condition. This is actually the first one we made. This is Foggy. She is a little pink brain with clouds around her, and she represents brain fog. This came about in our Facebook group way back when Pokemon Go was a thing, when it just came out. There was the disabled community was like, we cannot walk. We cannot physically go out and catch these Pokemon. So there were these cheats for disabled people that you had to prove to the company you were disabled. And then the Pokemon would come into your house and they would come to you. And there was a whole thread in our group, and somebody commented, somebody should make chronic illness monsters. I'm like, somebody, that is me. Like, I will do this. This is probably 4 to 5 years ago that comment was made. It took some time to get them where they are. So I had, I think, 2, the brain fog one and the fibromyalgia one, because that was only what I thought I had. And they were just images. And I had them for a few years. I think we had 6 different ones at some point. And I was like, the people who understand what they're about buy the t-shirts with the images on them. Other people don't. So I really need to kind of give them their own personality and make them alive a little bit more. But the more people saw these monsters, the more they wanted one for their condition. So we got more and more, but there were still no real personalities behind them. Then I asked in my community, is somebody good at writing? Can somebody kind of like help me get started? And that's how I got to know my now co-writer. We have actually written and published a book together, The Chargimals, about anxiety and mobility aids. And she was like, this is something I've always wanted to do. I'm kind of creative and good at writing. Let's just try it out. So we were just between the two of us kind of writing and emailing things back and forth. And after a year, I was like, okay, I think we can release this, and we'll just grow and learn as we go.
That is incredible. What's the name of the book again?
It's called Donnie and the Three Strange Norbert. Donnie is the MS Chargimal. He walks with a cane because he has wibbly wobbly legs. But one morning he gets out of bed and he wants to use his cane and his cane breaks. So he goes to the center of Chargeyville, which is their world, and he sees these three strange Norberts. Norberts are the normal, healthy people that don't live with health conditions. They have these weird yellow walking bikes. And that's when they learn about all these different mobility aids.
I love that. It's so creative. It's so great. And that you're just like I'm seeing a little common thread through here, which is that you're weaving into your business, like the personal experiences you've had and just what the community is telling you, yes. And it's really, I think that's a really great way to do it. And what have been some of the responses to the plushies and to the Chargimals, like metaphors? And they're not really metaphors. I mean, they're, I guess, characters. That's what I meant to say.
Well, all the responses have been amazing. Like the negative responses I've gotten are like, you don't have my monster. I want it now.
Yeah.
Wow. It's not just an image. They have a character. They have a way of speaking. Everybody has their own accent. They have their own friends. We have 44 Chargimals now, and the whole world is growing. We have Chargeyville is the world where they live. We have the main square, which is Battery Square, and they have charging benches. So you can sit on them and you will recharge your energy. But it doesn't work for diabetes, though. You cannot recharge your insulin. This is coming in the book, which we're writing now.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh my gosh. That's so great. I can see like a video game being made out of this, or kind of like Animal Crossing or something. I don't know.
Well, what I've been actually working on an app a few years ago, but like creating an app is a whole different world. And I'm already running quite a big community. So that was too much. So I stopped that. But what did I want to say? This is brain fog. It just kind of.
We're demonstrating in real time. No, that's me. Like every episode, I'll just be like, what was I going to say?
What were we talking about? A video game. I know what I wanted to say. In my mind, I see it like a Netflix show, like a children's cartoon. Like I know what it looks like.
Yeah. So I love it. No. And I think like finding ways to make disability representation and disability education entertaining and accessible is just so important. And I think a lot of times people are worried about like offending someone, or like, oh, if I would imagine someone saying something like, oh, if I make like a plushie out of it, are people going to think that it's like minimizing the seriousness or whatever? But it's like our basic human, the way I see it, no one asked, but this is my podcast, so I just say whatever I'm thinking. No, is that like people love stories. Humans have told stories. That's like how people theorize that like one of the reasons we've developed language was to like share our stories, and people connect to things that are cute and fun, and not just, again, like it is, I want to honor the seriousness of our conditions and how difficult life can be, but also I love that you bring this kind of entertainment element to it. So it's not just like, let me talk about how terrible every second of my life is. You know what I mean? Was there a point in there somewhere?
Yeah, it's like in the middle of the book, the main character is so exhausted, he cannot go on, and he goes home, and he's not mentioned for the whole second half of the story. He missed it because he's not feeling well.
Oh, that's so see, and it's like show don't tell is one of the things like it got grilled in me from like my 9th grade English teacher onward, instead of telling like my condition can cause fatigue, showing in a story, showing the person what's the effect of fatigue. They miss out. That's like really powerful, more so than just being didactic about it. So I love it. So you mentioned you have a Chargimal about the Chargimal character, a little monster for MS, for diabetes and brain fog. What are some of the other ones you have?
I've got a whole bunch, and I don't know if I'm going to remember them all. I have a little unicorn for being misdiagnosed. I'm going to make her the next plushie next year, by the way. We've got chronic pain, gastroparesis, Chiari malformation. We've got lupus.
So who drew these? Did you draw these? They're so cute.
I have an illustrator. He draws these, most of these. Some of them are old, so they're from an old designer. This is Polly for PCOS.
Oh, right. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, for
Yes.
those of you who don't know. So you really expand, like, yeah, it's such a fascinating evolution that you started with fibromyalgia, and then now it's been expanded to so many different, chronic conditions. And I loved on your website, I'm going to quote you to you on your website, you said, quote, "My main goal is to make the invisible visible by creating these products that show on the outside how you feel inside, and to support others going through the same thing and let them know that they're not alone." That's so beautiful.
That's how I feel.
Yeah. And so you've said that most of the responses have all been positive. Is there anything more you want to share about the response to the Chargimals or any of your work, I guess? It's kind of like brag about yourself. No, brag about the impact of what you've done on the community.
To me, it's kind of hard to know the impact. You can have a lot of people telling you, oh, this is so amazing. And you're like, I don't know, I'm just doing whatever I'm thinking and however I feel and what I want other people to understand. So they're like, you do so much for other people. I'm like, no, actually, it's the other way around. I do everything that I need, but I share it so others can use it too. So actually, it's very self-centered.
Well, mutually beneficial. Yeah,
exactly.
It's the same. Yeah, I feel that way. In the sense that, like, I feel the way that I learn a lot from the community. I might be teaching about something specific, but then I get a comment like, "Oh, have you ever thought about this?" Or "I do it this way," and then you learn too.
Always stay open. Always listen to others. That is just important, to stay open and never think you know it all.
Right. Oh, so true. It's like the sign of an expert is somebody who's willing to say, the limits of their knowledge and that they don't know something. And I guess
two Chargimals I forgot to mention, which I should mention in this podcast. We have one for arthritis. We have one for rheumatoid arthritis, and we have one for psoriatic arthritis. That's it. Psoriatic arthritis. So we have 3.
Oh, that's great. Okay. I was good. Yeah. That flitted through my brain and then just flitted right out. So yeah, thank you for specifying that. I think it would be great. I mean, and it's not just for children, but I do think it would be great for like a newly diagnosed, child as well, to feel that kind of, again, making this often invisible condition more concrete and something you can share, to show friends and family and teachers and others. So I really love it. And then, so both of us do a lot of social media video, and we've already kind of touched on social media before, but I'm just curious, like, what are some of the responses you've gotten to your videos, and what are some of the things that you, I guess, highlights and lowlights? Because I know social media is a double-edged sword, right? It's like so many good and so many bad things. Yeah.
Literally this morning, I was like having a whole discussion with somebody who didn't agree with what I said publicly. I'm like, I really don't care about your opinion, because this is my personal experience. I am a very secure person. Some people may perceive me as arrogant because I know what I want and I'm not scared to say so, and nobody's going to sway my opinion. So I was actually saying on TikTok, I posted a video yesterday that also 30,000 people saw. It's always the videos that you don't think are going to be interesting that then blow up. I'm like, this
completely
okay, whatever. And I say in there that I had all these symptoms and, they weren't diagnosed, all the story in the book. And in the end, it turned out I had Hashimoto's disease and also H. pylori overgrowth, this bacterial overgrowth, but it was so bad that it almost killed me. And by the time they found it out, I got the triple therapy with the 3 different antibiotics that you have to take for 3 weeks. That was so hard on my body. The first night, I thought I was going to die. Literally, I thought I was going to die. It was super bad. And it didn't completely clear the H. pylori. And then my nurse practitioner, she put me on essential oils. And in the end, the essential oils, of course, the antibiotics helped, but it didn't completely cure me. And in the end, the essential oils did. And I mentioned the brand, and they were like, this brand is an MLM. I'm like, I don't sell this brand. You cannot buy it from me. I'm not trying to promote anything. I'm just telling you what I did and which brand I used. If you don't want to use it, that's completely fine. And they're like, you don't know what they did. So I thought, always wanting to learn, maybe this company did something really bad that I didn't know about, and now I don't want to support them. So I'm like, I'm sorry, like, what did they do? And she's like, no, they're saying they can cure people and it's an MLM. I'm like, okay, that's not a debate or a discussion. It worked for me.
Right. You're sharing your personal. Yeah. You're not saying because it worked for me, you all need to go take it. Like, you're just sharing what worked for you. Yeah,
exactly. And I also mentioned that I'm like, just mentioning what worked for me. If it doesn't work for you, that's great. If you don't like the company, by all means, don't use it. You cannot buy this stuff from me. Well, you probably could because I have an account, but I have no interest in selling. This is not what I do. I have no interest in selling this. People have asked me to buy this. I'm like, that's not what I do. I don't sell oils. Oh, this person was really, and we were like messaging back and forth. And in the end, right before hopping onto this call, I made a video. So let's see what the reaction is going to be when I come back, because it was a little bit sassy.
I know that's something that I am like a recovering people pleaser, but still definitely a people pleaser. So yeah, I think that's been
I don't suffer from that.
I know. I'm like, tell me your secret. But I also like, yeah, it's everyone's personalities are different, and you can even tell it in childhood. Some people care more about what their classmates think of them. And some are just like, I know who I am and I'm just confident. Like, were you always like that?
To a degree. So I've always been like the ringleader, but when I just started on not only in this community, but before this, I had like an online how to grow your online presence back in 2013, like company for a few years. And I was very new, and I did like my first webinar, and some of the big boys from the industry, this was all in Dutch, they took my video, put it on this hate forum, and then all of like the big names, all the people you look up to when you're in a certain world were bad mouthing me. And it was like my first webinar, and it really completely crushed me. So I could have done two things. Again, I could have shrunk in a corner and never showed my face again, which the first day I wanted to do. And then the second day, I'm like, F you, I'm going to be so big. Okay. So one of the big boys that was bashing me, and he personally doesn't know that I know this because I was not in this forum. Somebody sent me screenshots. He is the one who helped me set up the t-shirt thing. So I said, friend, he was just like somebody in the same circles, and he helped me set up this whole thing. And it's such an internal, like, big win. Maybe I should tell him because we're good now, but I don't think he knows.
Well, it's like, let your haters be your motivators. Like, I think.
Exactly. So I had to really get a thick skin, and it's been years of every time somebody puts something, and I've had really bad negative things happen online, like extremely. The first time that I had this 3,000 people Facebook group, and I put my idea in them that is now called the Mystery Grab Bag for like $20-something a month. You can subscribe to the shop, and every month you get a surprise product. So I wanted to launch that. So before going to bed, I put in this group, I want to make this, membership that if you pay $15 or $20, you get something. I wake up to utter chaos. Half of the people unfollowed me because now I'm extorting disabled people. It was an enormous, big thing that they made whole hate groups like, don't follow the Unchargeables. I'm like,
because was money involved earlier? Was it just the t-shirts were the money?
Well, it was just the t-shirts first, and I just wanted to do like a t-shirt membership. But first of all, maybe I didn't word it well enough. And second of all, people felt left out. So I put in the text like, kind of like a VIP section, and they're like, oh, very important person, so we're going to be discarded because we're poor. No, that was not what I said. So through all these experiences, was crushing, but I had to choose every time. Am I going to have this break me, or am I going to like rise above, make something better? I took a whole year before I launched that. I was so nervous the next time. Mm-hmm. And the next time people loved it, and I sold like 80 memberships. And I'm like, but last year I was crucified for this thing.
That's, I think I've struggled with this as like also a chronically ill, entrepreneur. It's hard when you add money into the mix. Like you have a platform where you're providing a lot of free education, empowerment. Like both of us are doing that part, right? And you have a lot of resources for people, and then in a free community, like ways to connect to you online. But then you have a level where people can invest, monetarily, and then get more, because, I feel like so conflicted sometimes, because I'm like, on the one hand, I value my time and I value my expertise. And I think that there is a monetary value to some of the products I've done. Obviously, that's why I'm, have a monetary value to them. On the other hand, I do feel like I feel obviously sympathy for people who can't afford it. But I think the happy medium is just to provide, I do provide sometimes like need-based discounts, right? But you can't expect everyone to work for free, also. So I don't know.
Yes.
It's hard.
What I have done in that aspect. So in the beginning, people would ask me, oh, this is not a nonprofit, it's a for-profit. Who's the profit for? I'm like, me, I'm the good cause. Like, I'm a disabled single, mom trying to provide for me, who is not getting any disability or government assistance while raising my daughter alone. Not anymore, but back then. I'm like, the profit's for me. If that cause is not good enough, I'll take your money to Greenpeace and give it to their CEO, right? This money goes directly to me.
That is you're so confident. I'm like, please help me be confident, because you're worth it. No, it's true. I kind of touched on this in episode 50, where it was like celebrating 50 episodes. And I kind of explained why is Arthritis Life a company, like an LLC, not a nonprofit. And, not bashing nonprofits at all, but people make a lot of money in nonprofits too. It's not like everyone works for free in nonprofits. No. It's not so simple to say like all nonprofits are good and all companies where people make money are evil. Like, so anyway, like little.
And nonprofits are not even paying taxes. We make money and we pay our taxes.
And that, I think what's interesting, you mentioned that it's there's a transaction that's very direct. Like, so for me, I have a support group and an educational, products that I say, if you want to benefit from this, if you give me the money, because I created it and I facilitate it, and then I provide the service to you. And it's a one-to-one versus like soliciting donations. It's not better or worse. It's just like people donate, like, for specific events for these, the foundations, and then pharma companies donate, and then, individuals donate. And there's like this big, there's not a one-to-one relationship, right, between who pays the money and who benefits. And again, obviously a lot of disabled, people cannot afford certain things. And so that's where it becomes challenging. But I think for me, it's like, there is something like when people have skin in the game, like, I'm investing in your program, then they've even said that to me. They're like, I know harder. That I wanted to come to the meetings for Room to Thrive because I knew that I had like invested in it. And so it's, but I think like something that I definitely can tell I struggle more than you do with like wanting everyone to, I just want like gold stars. I want to like put a video out and everyone to be like, that's so true. You're so right. And then it's hard. Like, so how, I guess I'm trying to also anticipate like how the audience might be feeling. I think a lot of people struggle to figure out how to take negative feedback online. Like when someone comments, like I literally just got one the other day, I just shared it to my Insta stories. It's just like, maybe you're doing it wrong. Maybe it's hard because you're literally like, maybe it's hard to use the can opener because you're doing it wrong. Like, oh, it couldn't possibly be my joint condition. It's probably just that I'm doing it wrong. That's not even a troll. That's just someone who's just kind of like, but how do you have any advice for people who are nervous to speak up online, or nervous to, or worried about like negative feedback, like how can they be more confident like you?
First of all, you will get negative feedback 100%. So if you are not okay with receiving negative feedback, do not put anything out there, because it can be super harsh and you can get crushed. And I have known people that started things and literally stopped because of the negative backlash. Secondly, you have to be true to yourself. So if this is 100% true for you, and you are 100% certain that you stand behind this idea, this, product, this, whatever it can be, then when you get the feedback, to me personally, when I get negative feedback, but I don't feel there's any truth in it, I don't really feel affected. But when I feel like there is some truth in it, it hits me to my core. And there was one more thing I wanted to say, if my brain will let me. Like, I got a good one and then it went away again.
Oh, no.
Oh, right. I remember. Hurt people, right?
Yes.
Sick people they're alone in their bed. Their whole world is social media. They see me go on a hike because, I had that one good day and I posted it, and then I didn't post anything outside of my bed for 3 months. And they think that I can do all the things. And then I sell a t-shirt and I'm like, but you're not really sick. You look fine. You went on that hike last August and now you're trying to sell me these t-shirts. I have learned that the way people react has to do with their situation. It has nothing to do with your situation, really nothing. And the people that scream the loudest want your stuff the most. It means that they want it, but they cannot have it. And that makes them upset and they lash out at you.
That's so true. And the quote that comes to mind, I'm like a quote collector, but I think it's Eleanor Roosevelt, like, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent.
Exactly.
Someone
so
like,
good.
Yeah, I love that. I say that to myself all the time. And it's like, I did a jar opener video and someone's like, you're weak. And I'm just like, okay, like, you can't, your feelings don't affect me. Cause like, I don't really care. I never was like, well, I'm 40 now. If I had started that when I was 20, it would have been a lot harder for me.
Yes. I also started in my 30s. Like, I'm turning 39 in a few days, and it's very much easier to like take the hit than in your 20s. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm older than you. That's why you seem older and wiser than me in my head. I mean, just by like a year. I thought you were like a year older than me because you're very wise in the world. No, but like, I don't know if it's a cultural thing too. Like, I'm just trying to because I have 2 cousins that and my aunt who lived in Holland for a long time, and they're very confident too. So maybe there's I don't know, but I think it's more of an individual personality thing. But yeah, I think those are really, really great tips. And there's a difference between like for people who might be wanting to share their voice online, no one can argue with your story. Like, your story is your story. They might think that your conclusions that you're drawing from your story maybe aren't correct, right? Like, someone might say like, I did this diet and my symptoms got a lot better. Like, that's their story. No one can argue with that, right? But they might then say, like, they might draw a conclusion from that. Like, therefore, if everyone with my condition does this diet, they will all feel better just like I did. I'm like, I as a responder can take issue with the conclusion they drew from their story, but I can never argue with their story. Like, that's their story. You know what I mean? So kind of in your mind, like separating what's your truth in your story from the conclusions you're making from it. Like, that's been helpful for me.
People do argue with the story though.
Oh yeah. Oh, they'll argue with anything. Yeah. It's so funny. I know that's actually been the best exposure therapy for me because, again, as a people pleaser, I learned really quick. I can choose. Yeah. Like you said, I can choose if I want to avoid criticism, if that's the most important thing, I should do nothing, like make no videos and put nothing out there and do nothing because, that's the only way to avoid it. And so there's this other great quote, and this is my last quote I'll say, but I have it on my Instagram too. Like Albert Hubbard said, like, to avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing. And I'm like, the cost, even though I'm so driven to have gold stars and like happy feedback and like smileys from everyone, it is more important to me to do something meaningful in the world than it is to have positive feedback. And that was a hard thing for me to come to.
It is hard. Like I sound like it all doesn't affect me, but of course it does. And specifically in the beginning, it was so much harder than it is now. It's like you do either grow a thick skin or just fold.
Yeah. And you can also take seasons, to come in and out. Like I've known people they've been really active for a while, and then they've said, I need to step back for the next, few months or a year and say like, I need to reconnect with other things in my life. And then they come back with like a refreshed perspective. So there's many different ways to do it. But before we wrap it up, I wanted to make sure to ask, this is just one of my favorite questions to ask people is, if you have any advice for newly diagnosed people with just any chronic health condition. I was going to say, it'd be like with your specific conditions or just in general, because that newly diagnosed period can be so rough, right?
So when you're searching for a diagnosis, that is all you can see. You're like, when I get my diagnosis, then I'll get a treatment and then I'll feel better. Then you have your diagnosis and maybe there are no treatments, or maybe the treatment they're prescribing is not helping. And you feel lost because you were striving for that goal of being diagnosed. Now you're diagnosed and your goal has been lost. And you're like, am I going to feel like this forever? It is a very unsettling stage to be newly diagnosed. My advice would be just, feel your feelings, go to support groups, talk with others, and know that acceptance will come. Like in the years, you will learn to live and manage your symptoms, and you will find a way to hopefully feel much better. But if not, just manage it.
Yeah, I love that. It took me so long to get to the my feeling stage, because I was like, again,
me too.
This like I had this bias towards I only want to feel happy. So like I need to figure out how to like control my disease so I just feel happy all the time. And it's like, oh, that's not sustainable or possible for anyone, regardless if they have a health condition. Like no one feels happy all the time.
This is actually how the community grew with me, because right in the beginning, my main thing was getting diagnosed, because that's what was happening in my life. Then I was diagnosed and I was like, okay, so everybody lists their diagnosis, because that's where I was in my life again. Yeah. And that's very much the Unchargeables. The Chargimals is the next step. It's like living with your condition in the best possible way, trying to find inspiration, laughs, entertainment, manage, because that's where I am at now. So It kind of evolved with my personal situation.
No, that's so beautiful. It's totally like the way I'm very visual. So like the way I see it is, it's like you're on this road that's like, you're walking on this road that's like your life path, right? And there's this giant like barrier in the middle of the road, and that's like your diagnosis initially. And you see it as like, I can't keep going down the road until I remove this barrier, right? Let's say the barrier is like, I don't know, a big, like a fence or something. This metaphor is going to get really weird. But, and then you're like, okay, I have to like chop down the fence. And like, it just keeps growing back. Like it's not going away. Like me, but then you realize I could just like carry this fence with me. So that's where the metaphor breaks down. But it's like, you can take it with you. Like, you're like, this is part of me, but I can still move down the road with it. I can adjust and adapt. I can create like a cool little backpack that like allows me to like carry it, but the more that you see your diagnosis to me as the enemy, as the thing you need to fight, and that's like, then you're missing out. The whole rest of the road is there. That's like your life, and so you are missing out on the opportunities that are there with your condition, as opposed to just thinking, I have to make it go away, so that's kind of like my rallying cry.
This is why I use the words I live with something. I can live with fatigue because it's separate from me. I don't have fatigue because it cannot go away if I have it. My personal choice of why I changed the wording.
I love it. Yeah. I used to say my tagline was like, learn to live a full life despite arthritis. And then I've changed it to learn to live a full life with arthritis.
Yes.
So yeah, we're like wordsmithers over here. Yeah. But it's true. The words that we say impact our mental health a lot. So this is a great note to end on. I'm just really appreciative. I know how extremely busy you are with all of your projects. So I really appreciate it. Oh, and I've putting in the show notes all of your links to your Instagram and Facebook, TikTok, and your shop. But can you just tell everyone your handles out loud, or I can say them too if you don't have them memorized. Mine are all different.
It's all the Unchargeables, but it's written with like EA, Unchargeables, Unchargeables. So that's everywhere. And then on Instagram, we are the Chargimals because the first one got banned. And on Facebook, I'm the Chargimals. On TikTok, I'm the Unchargeables by Natalie. And on YouTube also the Unchargeables by Natalie.
Awesome. Okay. I will definitely, I'm putting those in the show notes, and I just appreciate your time again. Thank you so much for coming on the Arthritis Life podcast.